Okay guys, here we are today. I'm going to go over how to, the two ways I like to set distributor ignition systems and carbureted systems, how to set your distributor timing and how to tune your carb. There are different ways to set it, like with the timing light. This uses an inductive clamp that goes over spark plug wire number 1 and 2 clamps that are going on the battery that powers the light up. On your timing light, down by the crankshaft, the harmonic balancer, as it's spinning, has a line on it. That line is constantly spinning. Well, this thing will blink every time cylinder 1 sparks. So what that does is it actually stops, in your perception, your view, it stops the movement of that line and makes it actually stop. And it'll move back and forth as you turn the timing on the distributor back and forth. That line corresponds to a tab or a plate sticking out from the side of the block. So as that plate is sitting there, so this line is moving, that plate actually has certain lines on it, certain numbers, like 0 degrees advance, 10, 5, 10, 15 degrees advance, and there'll be lines below it for negative advance. So then what you'll do with the timing light is tune it by turning it back and forth and watching where that line is and sending it to what the manufacturer wants in the repair manual. This method is really good, but you gotta be careful that you don't touch something hot like the headers that I've done before in the past. And this is my own personal timing light. You're not doing that anymore on today's cars. However, this setup can be difficult too. I like a better method, which is easier to do. My method is to take a vacuum gauge. You pull a vacuum line off, hook this up to the vacuum line. This has to be a vacuum line that has constant vacuum. So this line will have constant vacuum while the engine's idling. There are other lines that are called port vacuum. This one's a port vacuum line going back to the distributor. The only time it gets vacuum is when you crack the throttle off of idle, and it'll start to feed back into this line. So this is constant vacuum, and when we get this thing running and going, what we'll do is we'll watch where the needle is on the inches of vacuum, and preferably around 20 is what I want it. And as I turn the distributor, if I go too far advanced or too far retarded, my vacuum will start to drop. And then I try to bring it back up to the highest vacuum I can get. So I'll just tweak it back and forth. So 1, I'm looking at the gauge for the highest vacuum I can get. 2, I'm listening to the engine. So the second thing I'm doing is I'm listening, and I'll hear when the engine wants to run right. If I go too far backwards or too far forwards, it'll start to run rough, but I can also see it on my gauge because too far forwards or backwards will bring it down. So when I get that sweet spot, the highest number I can get out of that engine, and it's not always 20 because your really cammed up engines at idle might be running in the 10s, the 15s, or even maybe 5 because it's not making a whole lot of vacuum at idle because it's cammed and it's loping really bad. But that highest reading you can get is the sweet spot for that distributor. At that point, I will tighten down the bolt back underneath the distributor to lock it down. Then the next step is to take the screwdriver, and we're going to adjust these 2 screws. This screw sets the mixture for this bank of cylinders. This screw controls the mixture for this bank of cylinders. And notice I've marked them in the past with a blue permanent marker. So when I turn this one half a turn this way, that's half a turn open. If I go all the way around, that was a whole turn. And right now I have it set at a really good spot, so I don't want to mess with this too much. But what you'll do is you'll back it out, half a turn this side, half a turn that side, back it out. As you back them out, you're opening up the valve and putting more fuel in the engine. You'll back it out until you get a spot where the engine starts to stumble, and then you'll turn them in half a turns or quarter turns at a time. And as you turn each one the same amount, a quarter turn each time, you'll get so far in, it's leaning it out, the engine will start to stumble again. You want to be in the midway, the midpoint. You can also watch your vacuum gauge. It shouldn't affect the vacuum a whole lot, but you can tell just by looking at it whether or not you need to adjust your timing again as well. So what I'll do is I'll back it out to where it starts to stumble if it's too rich. I'll run it in to where it's too lean and it starts to stumble. And then I'll back it out to the middle. And what that'll do is that'll affect your idle though too. Your idle will go up and down. Henry, it kept going up on you, right? Mm-hmm. So once I find that sweet spot like I did on this, then I'm going to grab this screw right here, which is my idle screw. Here's my throttle. You know, this will turn it out, it'll lower the idle, turn it in, it'll raise the idle. And I try to run it around 750, 800 RPMs, whatever sounds good. So this method is tuning by the ear, and I like it a lot. And then you take it out and run it and road test it. Henry, did it have get up and go?
It ripped, yeah.
It ripped pretty good, right? Yeah. All right, guys. If you have any questions, further questions, you